Today's paper is 9 lines that are affected. I think at labor and manage 2 lines. It started off with
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Alabama,
and the Constitution of the State of Alabama,
so long as I continue a citizen thereof.
was 4, and that should work out their own problems and not have Big Brother, the government, looking over their shoulder. But inevitably, if the national interest is affected so that nothing is shipped and the whole country is paralyzed, then the government has got to step in. I would be very reluctant to vote to end the strike or to interfere. But in the interest of national security, if it gets to that point, which it has not reached yet, then I think that the Congress will be called back from recess. We have 1 month off, and we'll be asked to act. I would hate to see this come about.
One final question.
Well, this is, of course, an off year. It's a year we feel that we when we feel we should spend our time getting ready for the big year next year. I believe that the Republican Party is basically in good shape in Alabama because the people in Alabama really think Republican. I think that while people don't like to identify with one party or another, that seems to be the growing trend. And still, when the chips are down, the Republican Party is more representative of the feelings and attitudes of the people in Alabama. So I think basically we are in good shape, but we have a tremendous job of organization ahead of us. No candidate is going to run without an organization to stand behind him. And so our job as the Republican organization is to build that background, that foundation.
When we conduct Republican registration drives, we naturally go where our strength is, and I feel that's what these Democratic-oriented organizations have done. Also, only 5% of the young people have registered to date, is our estimate. And then, when you've got a baker's dozen of Democratic presidential aspirants, ranging all the way from, say, on the left, like Ramsey Clark, the right, Wilbur Mills, left, George McGovern, right, Scoop Jackson. Well, a young person who's looking for a presidential candidate to identify with, and this is where their primary interest is in presidential politics rather than who's going to serve on the school board or the water board, etc., well, then that young person can identify surely with one of that great number of presidential Democratic possibilities. But it's not going to stay that way.
Well, I was very disappointed that the legislature didn't see fit to let the cut, since we were losing 1 seat, come somewhere in the northern part of the state. As you know, we lost 1 member of Congress from Mobile,
before in the last what they call 9-8 plan. This bill, if by putting me with another member from the southern part of the state, means we will only have 2 members of Congress from Montgomery South, while both senators and then 5 other congressmen are from the northern part of the state. So I was very disappointed in this. Plus the fact that George Andrews is a good friend of mine, so is most anybody else they could pit me against. But wherever they draw the lines, I intend to run for re-election and do my best to represent the people of whatever district I wind up in.
What plan would you prefer to see?
Well, I would prefer to see a plan that has not been introduced that's going to keep the southern 3 districts, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and then let the cut come someplace north of Montgomery where I think there's ample justification and a number of ways that could pit some other people together besides eliminating one of the congressmen from the southern part of the state.
You were working late last night in Washington on the Lockheed legislation, which has now gotten through the House by a narrow margin and is headed for the Senate. What do you feel will be the eventual outcome of this?
Well, Bill, as you know, this thing has gone up the hill and down the hill. First, there was the administration-backed proposal to put up $250 million as a guarantee, not the money, but just to endorse the note, so to speak, to the banks. Then someone in the Senate came up with the idea that we'll reconstitute something like an RFC, a Reconstruction Finance Corporation, of $2 billion to help all big industry that gets in trouble if it affects the national interest. Now, this is what they're filibustering in the Senate, and they're still filibustering. By an amendment yesterday, this was cut down to back to $250 million guarantee in the House. It passed by 3 votes. I was one of those who supported it because just a week before we had voted to spend $1 billion in economic aid to help the unemployed and the unemployable. You might say to spend $1 billion to teach people to rake leaves. This will guarantee $250 million, a quarter of that, to keep 65,000 people on the payroll who are presently on the payroll and paying taxes. So it just makes sense, and I think that's a proper vote.
We think all of the decisions were made by the scientists. They were not made at the secretarial level. They were made strictly by the DVMs, the veterinarians, the scientists in the department, and we were in constant contact with them at the secretarial level. We knew of all of the decisions that were being made along the way, and we think with the information that they had at hand and with a vaccine that was not tried, we didn't know whether or not we would introduce the disease by the use of the vaccine, and also the fact that we were dealing with a foreign country, which is a delicate situation to say the least, that the scientists did make the right decisions with all the information they had at hand in every instance. We would not have changed any, and looking back, we still would not, because we did not want to accidentally introduce the disease through vaccination. And we did offer to do some things in Mexico. The Mexican government said that such as spraying for mosquitoes, they said they thought they could handle it themselves. We volunteered all the assistance there and did make vaccine available to the government of Mexico in every instance where they requested and asked for it. And this was as much as we could do.
Well, probably he will, but not before the China visit. You know, President Johnson had planned to go to Moscow, but called off the trip when Russia invaded Czechoslovakia. I would not look for a Moscow visit before the China trip, because that would take the shine off China and cause the Chinese to lose face. Since the deadline of May 1972 has been set for the visit to Communist China, the President could very well go there during this year and then visit Moscow before the May deadline next year. This date was set supposedly to keep the visit out of presidential politics, but it is squarely in the midst of presidential politics already, as the President well knows.